I messed it up last time. I went live with somebody, and so hopefully this is the correct way to do it. So Lauren is going to hop on, and we'll also give it a few minutes for folks to hop on with us. So this is the part. Here we go. I can add her. Look, it worked. I did it
Yay!
right.
Is the
Hi.
is the connection okay?
I think so. I'm sure as people hop on, they'll tell us. So can you see the little people up at the top, like, that tells you how many people are on?
Yeah, I mean, it shows 0, so, I mean,
Yeah, it does, but
that's
I'm just
fine.
asking. So one thing I've learned, like, it'll show sometimes like 2 or 3, but then whenever it ends, it's like way more than that. So I don't know exactly how that works. So, anyways, this is the part that if you are watching this after it's live, just skip forward the next 2 or 3 minutes until we start actually talking about the good stuff. This is the part where we just wait for people to hop on. So, someone's on watching us, and they'll probably tell us if we're breaking out a little bit. I don't have the best service because I live in the country, and so sometimes it cuts out a little bit. I have learned if I just stay in one place, that's probably the best way to
Yeah.
approach this.
Don't
So,
go to your car.
yeah, that's something actually we can say that. That's not too much information that people will miss if they skip ahead. Lauren, you've been kind of thinking about moving a little further out of the city, and that was like one of your big questions. You're like, "But I need internet." And I'm like, "Yep, it's a
Yeah.
thing."
Yeah. Well, I mean, where we
Yeah.
live now, we don't have good cell service, so I have to have my
Mhm.
Wi-Fi on in order to get calls, and so I think it was showing maybe
Yeah.
2 bars just a minute ago, so I'm hoping I'm, like, right next to the Wi-Fi router, so I'm hoping it stays.
Yeah. That's the thing when you try to, which I'm sure we'll talk about, when you try to do things to, like, mitigate EMF exposure, you have terrible service. I wanna get one of those canopies. Have you seen those,
Yeah.
what are
Well,
they
yeah.
called? Yeah,
I know. I had
yeah,
the
the
shielded healing people come out. I was supposed to
yeah,
buy
well,
one
that's
and I
true.
didn't.
I forgot about that. I forgot about that. Yeah, so, like, the canopies, you just because I'm on call, she's on call, which we're not gonna be soon, which we're going to talk about.
No, I'm not right
But being on
now.
well, you're not. Yeah, I'm not either. Yeah. Oh, this worked out. I don't even think we had that conversation. Yeah, I'm not
Mm-mm.
on call either. So the problem is like you can't put your phone on airplane mode. You can't even put your phone in something that's going to block it. Like it has to be on next to you. Like we turn off our Wi-Fi router and things like that, but my phone has to be on next to my head, essentially, or somewhere where I can hear it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they have these canopies, but they're like 3 grand, I think. But you
It's
like zip
about
up in your
maybe a
canopy.
little bit more. It depends on the size of your bed. Yeah, we considered buying one, but I think when the guy came out here to test our area, he was so surprised at how good it was because we were kind of away from everything that I was like, I'm not gonna spend 3 or $4,000, and I was just yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That's always the trick with all of it, all the stuff, all the mitigating stuff. So,
Yeah.
well, I'll give it one more minute, so we'll be at 5 minutes and then we'll start. And something that I've learned on lives is that like my sister did a live with me at the literal worst time last week, but it was just when she was available and so we did it. But it was like 5 p.m. on a Friday, which is not when you want to do it. And we had really 4 lives for me, for my, like, audience base. I had a really great replay on that, actually. So, I know a lot of people will ask me after, like, "Oh, I missed it," and whatnot, and so they'll be able to
Yeah.
replay it. So, with that, if anybody is watching this and you have questions for us as we go, please leave them in the comment section, and I'll make sure that if it's left, since it's on my platform, Lauren sees them too, and we can answer any questions that you might have for us as we talk. So, I love doing podcasts. I like doing lives. Those types of things don't make me anxious or nervous. But actually, this one is making me a little anxious because I'm talking about something that I haven't been super vulnerable with yet.
Mhm.
And like I realized today, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm anxious to talk about. Like not anxious in an excited way, but just like anxious to talk about this.
Yeah.
So, anyways, with that, then here we go. So, I thought we could talk about first of all just how we know each other, um, which is really through birth first.
Yeah.
So, I'm a midwife, and you are
A birth photographer, of course.
an amazing birth photographer. She's amazing.
Thank you.
I'm really picky with who I like to have in my birth space, and she is the best photographer to have in the birth space. So not only that, but you do beautiful work. And so when I was pregnant with my third, I had 10 years of choice to choose from with birth photographers, and I chose Lawren. And the funny thing
Oh,
is we hadn't done any births together yet. Like
I know.
actually, I don't think. But I knew I was like, I want her. I think I had assisted and knew that. I think I assisted Becky or something, and then also just saw your work
It
and loved it.
was. I
And
remember the client. It was Becky's client. That was the
yeah,
only time I
and I
had
was like,
worked with you before that.
yeah, I was like, this is great. So I hired you really early. I think I was like real early, and you're like, let's give it a minute. Um, and still to this day, like a lot of my clients don't get to use you because she's worth every penny, is how I'll word it. Yeah. And so it's an investment, very well worth it. So, so first you were my birth photographer, and I didn't really know much about you. When I got close, you had told me that you were flying this guy here to do a training for homeopathy. And so I was like, oh, okay, like she's into homeopathy like me, that's cool. And then that was kind of that. And how did we like essentially reconnect and become friends?
I
Because that
was
was in 2020 or 2021 beginning.
Yeah, it was 2021. I was trying to think about that, and I don't know. I don't
That's
remember
funny.
how we actually ended up started talking, but I mean, I'm sure it had something to do with homesteading or something to do with, like,
Yeah.
natural medicine, and,
Mhm.
I'm the type of person that just kind of if I have a question and there's someone that might have the answer, I just go and ask. I don't even hesitate.
Ask
So
her.
it could have just
Yeah.
been something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, cuz I don't think we really like became friends for a while. Um, I think you might want to talk about it. You had a head injury. You slipped and fell shortly after my birth, actually. And that took you down a healing journey. And I think that's when I like started to notice on your social media that you were exploring health options. And my good friend Salon, she's friends with you because you guys have done a
Yeah,
lot of birth together. Yeah, she mentioned to me that you were going through something with your health, and trying to find some answers. And then, oh, and she told me about your daughter. That's what it was. She told me about your daughter's skin,
yeah,
and I had started making some things, and I think I just offered. I was like, "Hey, do you would you want to try this on her?" That was like a little over a year ago. I think that might have something like that. Like that's when we started talking.
right.
Um and then when she was going through that flare, you were like, "Do you happen to have these herbs?" And some of them I was like, "I think
Yeah,
I
that
do." And
probably
I was
was
like,
it.
so it just kind of like, yeah, that's how it was. Something like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, that's how we know each other. And I guess that's how we became friends. So I think that leads us into why are we quitting birth at the same time?
I think it's kind of crazy because it's not something that you and I even talked about doing. It just so happened that we went through some of the health stuff at the same time. We started trying to heal the same thing at the same time.
Yeah.
And we both were like, we kind of need to back off. And I think you probably talked about backing off a lot longer than I did. I think I was too afraid to completely let go for a long time. And so I tried different
Mhm.
avenues like, let me just raise my price, let me take less,
Yeah.
and it just got to a point that
Mhm.
it's like I needed to quit making excuses and just do the thing that I needed to do. But yeah, it just
Yeah.
so
I mean,
happens we're like
same.
doing it together.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the timing. Yeah, same. I mean, so we work on like a 9-month schedule. First of all, it's not like you can say, like, we're going to change careers or quit our job. And like, you can do that in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
commitments. We can't do that. So there's a lot of time to change your mind
Yeah,
because of
it
that.
is.
Like,
You have a special
because
repeat client
you'll,
reach out to you. It's
yep,
like, I can't say no. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. So, once I knew for sure, because I did the same thing, like, I was backing off, different things, trying to figure it out. And when I officially said, "Okay," like, it became clear I needed to take time off. That was in January of this year, and I am not going to be off call until January 2024. Like, that's how long it took.
Yeah.
Um, and I might add that I'll just toot my horn and toot Lauren's horn at the same time. We're really successful in what we do. Like, we stay booked, we have repeats, we don't have to do, like, a lot of advertising. If anything, we're, like, trying to make space. So, I think that that adds a layer of extra hard because 'cause we're really good at what we do. Our clients are really happy with us, and it's really hard to say no. I had to say no to 2 people yesterday. 2,
Oh my
not just 1,
gosh.
2 in 1 day.
Oh my god.
Um, so let's talk about why why we're quitting and what that looks like. So both of us have been in the holistic world ourselves for a long time. Like, that's something I learned about you too, and that's how we connected a little bit, was because we both knew a lot and yet not enough at all to help ourselves. Um, so I started down the path about 15 years ago. I have a 15-year-old. So after I had him, I started to, like, dip my toe into it. And by the time he was 3, I was relatively all in. I mean, I didn't know what I didn't know, but I was super eager to, like, totally overhaul as I could, as I had
Mhm.
bandwidth to or finances to. So I I've been on the journey for a while. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, basically, when Claire was born, she's our only kid, so I can't say my first, but she's about to be 8 in September, and we had a lot of little things happen along the way during pregnancy that made me question the system, so called. Like, I was
Mhm.
harassed by my OBGYN and eventually got kicked out of their practice and
Oh.
switched to a birthing center, thankfully. And so I kind of started somewhat of the natural holistic journey even before she was born. But she, was born with eczema and food allergies pretty much right after she existed, like within that first month. So we had to find alternative ways, and we experienced a lot of things with the typical standard Western medicine and
Mhm.
pediatricians things. So yeah, that's kind of how we got into it. And it just kind of kept
Okay.
going ever since.
Yeah, it's crazy how many people I talk to that their birth or their first kid is kind of what led them down a different path, you know? It really changes
Right.
you if you let it. So, yeah. Well, so both of us, I mean, we invest time and money into our health. And I think both of us are kind of up for trying anything.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I love. Like, I can tell you anything and you're like, "Not crazy, it's fine." Like,
No,
even if
nothing's
you tried
crazy
it
to
and
me
it was
anymore.
crazy, you're like, "Go." Yeah. Like, there's no level of crazy. And when I say that, I mean, there's a whole level of spiritual, emotional healing that has to take place when you're healing, and so that's where you can really get into the crunchy, if you will.
Yeah.
And so it's just really nice I can say that to you. But last year, so I mean, you guys were experiencing symptoms for a long time. Like you said, like, Claire was born with it. But when did it all, like, come to a head for you? Like, with your
I
health
mean, there's a
symptoms?
with Claire or with me? You're talking about with me specifically?
I guess you. Yeah,
Yeah.
you.
I mean, there's a lot of little points along the way that, it's like, what happened there and questioning this because we'll never have all of the answers of, the history and timeline. But I think a lot of it happened when I started birth and
Mhm.
when we moved to our first house in Plano. We had two houses in Plano. And moving into that house, everything kind of went south health wise with me and Claire. And hers was worse than mine at that point. But I had quit breastfeeding her there. So she had a lot of allergies. I was on her diet for a long time, very restrictive. And I ended up being able to eat things for the first time in that house, which I think
Mm.
it just led to a cascade of like me overindulging in foods that I haven't had in 3 years. And then we were stressed out with birth. And then we decided we needed to move just because I'm not going to get into the details, but the layout and things of the house were strange, which I think probably had mold, but we don't know at the time. We moved to a new house where, again, both Claire and I had new symptoms that were pretty significant. But that time between moving from that house to the new one, the second one in Plano, I had gained 50 pounds just that summer alone. And I didn't really change anything other than I'm under stress. I was still on call, and then, potentially a moldy house. So that's kind of
Mhm.
where things started coming up with me. I started having inflammation. Um, I don't remember much in between then and now because I've had a head injury in between all of that. But the
Yeah, she
ending,
forgot. Like, she legit
yeah.
forgot.
And it's also, honestly, a lot of it is somewhat of a blur because I feel like we had so many traumatic instances with Claire and things she was going through that it kind of like shoved it to the side. I don't want to remember it.
Mm,
But the worst part of what is causing me to step away from birth today happened just this past September. And yeah, I mean, do you want me to go into all of that? Because that's like a lot. So we'll be
yeah. Well,
here.
here, I'll catch me up. I'll catch me up to
Yes, catch
September
you up
because
because I'll be here all day
that's what
talking
was
about
kind of
that.
interesting. Yeah, so we moved. So I've been in birth work for 11 years now. And I've been kind of tired my whole life. I always say, like, my husband and I were high school sweethearts, and he'll tell you, like, I always just desired to nap. So I've definitely had some like unique symptoms my whole life, which is probably why right after I had my son, which I was only 22, no, 23, I was 23. I dove in because I just was on a search to feel better. I just really believed food could heal me. And so I thought if I do enough, then it can heal me. And I really, even before that, I blamed myself when I didn't feel good, when I was tired. I wasn't working out enough. I was told that. Like, we would go and run labs, and my iron would look good and my B vitamins would look good. And the doctor would be like, I don't know. And so it was like, oh, well, you're not working out enough or you need to lose weight. And I'm talking like I'm 15, 16. So I just thought it was me, like it was my fault. So I've always struggled with that to a degree. And then we wanted to have another baby, and I was 36 at the time, so I'm older. I'm a midwife post COVID because that was crazy. And we moved when she was 3 months old, so I'm postpartum. And I was on my feet like constantly for 3 weeks trying to move with a newborn, and my feet were hurting like crazy, like never before. My joints were hurting, but my feet. So I told my pelvic floor therapist, and she's like, "Oh, it's probably your shoes." So I like change all my shoes and am thinking, "Okay, I need to like get with the program on my shoes." It doesn't help. Um, in that time, I'm just really tired. I don't feel good, but I'm postpartum and I'm old, right? So I'm advanced maternal age. And so I'm like, okay, this is me. So about 6 months postpartum, I deep dive. I'm like, this is my responsibility. I know this stuff. Like, I tell this to other people. And I got so serious on mineral repletion, protein intake, just everything I could. My thyroid was like perfectly regulated by that point. I'm like running labs, I'm taking tons of supplements, spending way too much money on a lot, and I'm not feeling good. And so this is like September of 2020. I'm trying to think. Yeah, September. Oh, I don't know. It's about a year after my daughter, and I am not feeling good at all. We go on vacation, and because I go on vacation, I take something that I will not mention that people take for parasites, if you will, because I don't want the thing because I have to get swabbed
Mhm.
and I want to come back home. So I take it, and I'm feeling great, but I'm thinking it's because I'm on vacation. That's all I'm thinking. Then I get sick, like really sick, and I get strep and flu. I mean, I'm like out for like 8 days, and I take the thing again because I have the ability to, and I feel great for like 6 weeks. And so I'm like, okay. So at this point, my daughter's like 18 months old, and I'm supposed to go back for my once a year checkup with the endocrinologist that I had started after she was born when I was feeling bad. And I go in and he's like, "How do you feel?" And I'm like, "I feel like junk." And he's like, "Well, your thyroid's perfect." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. What's wrong with me?" And at this point, one of my clients had Lyme disease and was talking about it in appointments, and it did sound kind of like what I was having, but I thought my whole life I've been tired like this. Like, this is not what this is. Well, I tell my endocrinologist this, who's 80 and like worked for the government, and so he has all kinds of ideas. And I say, when I get sick, I feel better. And he goes, "Well, what do you do when you get sick?" And so I'm thinking about it and I tell him what I take. And he goes, "Oh, that's a cure for Lyme." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Well, not a cure, but it treats it." And I was like, "Do we run tests?" And he's like, "It's probably not going to show anything, but we can." And he basically just suggested I do some research. So that was September of last year. And that was when you guys kind of felt the same thing. And so I ended up running some tests, some unique tests. They're not typical tests. And it did, in fact, come back with Lyme. And I started treating it. And I was like a pretty new person come February of 2023. Um, and so with that, that's where you and I like even more deep dove with each other of just like realizing that sometimes what's going on like underlying is not our fault. Like there's not enough health food we can eat. There's
Yeah.
not enough services we can partake in. Um and so that's brought like its own emotional journey. But I think like once you realize that, it's easier for us to take a step back and say, "Oh, I actually do need a break," because you understand it's not you like I actually deserve the break because I'm sick and I actually need to heal. So okay, you hit September and tell me what happened.
It's funny because every September we have something go on with Claire, and so you're saying you have that in September. September is like a weird month.
Oh
I know
no, we've
September
got
is
one
just
month.
next month, so we'll see what happens. Um,
What happened?
so we actually part of my journey in that aspect kind of started in November of the previous year and went all the way of last year. I had gotten a second opinion with a naturopath who kept telling me that I think you have a mold issue. I think you have mold in you. You need to check your house. And I spent like the whole year hiring, different inspectors. Everyone said nothing's wrong, whatever. We spent a lot of money in it. But we decided to go ahead and just move because the market was really hot. We would get a lot of money for our house, and I couldn't afford different treatments anymore that we were needing to try to heal. Like I couldn't invest in the things that I needed because of the financial aspect. And so at that point, selling the house was going to allow us to take care of ourselves better. So we actually
Mhm.
decided to sell for that reason. um and I am nervous to say this live, but they're at the
I know.
end. I know, because all the
Yeah, I
timing is
know. I
fine.
mean, I'm
I'm legally safe.
treading
I'm throwing
lightly
that out
too.
there. But something happened in that house. We were already in the process of selling it. We already had an offer. It was already like done. Um, but the humidity, something was going on. It had never happened the whole time we lived there. The humidity in the house was like 60, 70%. We couldn't get it to go down. Like the floors were sticky. It was weird. And then all of a sudden, Claire started having these night terror episodes where she would wake up and like sleep run. It's not sleepwalking. She just takes up and runs and starts
Wow.
screaming that she's dying and um, like just very terrifying things, which I have actually some of the recordings posted on my personal Instagram highlights if y'all want to go see. But
Uh,
that became really scary for us. And then I started having symptoms and it started just progressively getting worse where I thought I was going to die in the middle of the night in my sleep. And so I ended up going
You
and
went
getting.
black all of a sudden. Can you hear me? All of a sudden, your picture disappeared. You went black.
Oh no.
I can hear you. Are you getting a call or anything?
I did get a call, but I X'd out of it. That's a very
Weird.
bad photo for me to sit on. How do I
Can
redo this?
you see it now? I mean, I can hear you just fine, but I don't know what happened.
Let's see if I can. I don't
I
know
don't
how to.
know.
If I X out, what happens? Can I rejoin, you think?
Um, I have no idea. I've never had that happen. I wonder if you can X out and rejoin. I can remove you, but I have a feeling if I remove you, then you can't join back. I wonder if you X out if you can ask to come back.
Let me
That's so weird. Yeah, I don't have any
I
options
guess
to do anything.
when you get a phone call, everything freezes.
That's
All right, I'm
weird.
gonna try. I know there's always
Try.
something. Let me try to X out and I'll see
Ah,
if I can come back.
okay.
Mm,
We'll see if she can come back. If she can't, maybe we'll do a part two if she can't go back. And then we can just leave everybody hanging. Okay, it says guest left. Let's see what happens when or if she can get back on. Oh, yes. Okay. Yay!
Hey!
It worked. That was nerve-wracking. Now
Okay.
we know. Okay.
The vet was
Okay,
calling
go
me,
ahead.
which is a whole other
Okay.
situation.
Oh,
Anyway,
okay.
I started getting sick as well to where I thought I was having like if I surely I'm not going to make it tonight. Someone's going to come in my room and find me dead. Like that's how bad I was feeling. And so I ended
Mhm.
up getting a hold of my functional neurologist who had checked me out because I think I woke up that morning and was slurring my words. And my husband was very alarmed because it's the same symptoms I had when I had my concussion. And
Yeah.
so after that, I went to go get, he ordered me an MRI, went to go get it. They found a lesion on it, but we don't know if it's from my concussion or from what's been going on. So we were just thankful to like hurry up and get out of that. We left early
Yeah.
from my house, got in an Airbnb, and with mold, because we at least so we did have test positive for trichothezene mycotoxins, but the inspector said that it was from our last house as like a what is that called? It's like it I brought we brought our furniture in from our last house and it reinfected or
Yeah.
whatever. So they're saying that
Yeah.
it wasn't high enough to do damage, just fog, whatever. Um, we just went ahead and got rid of everything and started over. And that's kind of
Yeah.
like where our healing journey sort of began. But I
Yeah.
was so bad that I was even talking to Becky about seeing a doctor for multiple sclerosis because I was having all of those
Yeah.
symptoms and
That's how it feels. Yeah. So with us, like I said when we moved in, my feet started hurting and I had seen some people that I follow on social media talking about mold. And so come I think July, we moved in April. Come July, I was like, I just wonder cuz it's a 1920s farm home, like if there's mold somewhere. And I was having, so many symptoms, so much anxiety, but my husband had started to. We were having horrible sleep. Our baby was the worst sleeper out of all of our kids, but again, you just try to like make it make sense. So I'm like, oh, I'm postpartum. So I must have a postpartum mood disorder. Oh, well, she's just a different baby and she's an infant, you know?
yeah.
And so with him, that was the piece that made it click because he was having weird symptoms. And so I said, I just really think we need to check for mold. That's really what it came down to. It was like an intuition thing. So we hired an inspector, which that's a whole nother topic because they're terrible. Like blanket, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna say, like when you ask me to recommend one to
Mhm.
you, I'm not
I
gonna have
know.
one
I know.
because I don't think any like just do it yourself on mold finders. But we hired one to come and they tested and they found one in the hot water heater closet, and then they found some specifically under our pantry, which was right by our bedroom. And so we had it remediated. They tested and everything was cleared. We didn't really have anything change in symptoms. Well, like 3 weeks later, I decide, well, we're going to have our air ducts and our HVAC sanitized. And they get up there and it is loaded. And the guy's like, no, we're going to have to do something totally different with this than what you were planning to do if you want to fix it. So we paid the money and we did. And within 2 weeks, everyone's symptoms were gone. We
Wow.
didn't realize like our kids were having allergies because of it. We just thought, oh, like we moved to the country, their allergies were gone. My husband's sleeping better again. I was feeling a lot better. The brain fog lifted that I thought was just me being tired from postpartum, but the difference was is theirs all got better, but my joint pain did not. And so, and that was September. I mean, that was like we started the process in July and we finished about September. I will say, I wonder if the September thing has anything to do with when it gets really, really wet, the mold grows, and then when it gets really, really hot, it becomes worse and it becomes airborne, and that's where we land in Texas in September, August, September. I wonder if that's why. Like we've reached our toxicity high. I don't know. Because then in the winter, doesn't it go dormant to a degree? Never
I
goes
mean,
dormant, but like
if you're real sensitive, it doesn't matter.
it's not gonna matter, but I'm just saying,
Yeah,
like, it would make sense that the
yeah,
growth is heightened at that point,
yeah,
yeah.
because mold grows
So
in humid, warm climates, so
right, Texas. So, yeah, so for us, the weird kicker for me was that, like, I wasn't getting better, and I knew, again, like, I think it was probably August, July of the following year, I got to the point in the middle of the night where I could not turn my door handle. Like, that's how
wow.
serious it was. I would get up to go to the bathroom, and, there was a night where I was like, "I cannot get out of my door." And, and it would be fine enough during the day, like, it didn't impact my job or anything like that because I would get going and I'd be fine, but I was 37 years old, like, I shouldn't have
Yeah,
trouble opening the door. Yeah, and you just become, like, helpless, like you said, like, you feel like you're gonna die. I just thought, I'm not gonna make it to 50 years old. Like, I can't do this.
yeah.
This is not gonna be okay. And I didn't really share that with anybody. I didn't even fully share it with my husband because I didn't want to worry him, like how bad it was, because I didn't have a solution. And so I just thought this is me not doing enough. So I didn't want to tell him how bad it actually was because I was afraid, like, I don't have a solution, so I don't know what to do. Um, so finding out what it was huge and like such a game changer, you know. But I think, now I think both of us, anytime we hear somebody with health problems, we're like, is it mold? Because it impacted us so greatly and differently
Yeah.
because mold triggers and turns on whatever underlying is going on. So my Lyme doctor believes that basically the stress of postpartum and moving into a situation where we had mold is what triggered the Lyme to come out of dormancy. So it was both. It's multifold. And then when you've got something like Lyme, or maybe you have an autoimmune disorder, whatever it may be, or a gene mutation, your body doesn't chelate and methylate the mold. So that's why you can
Mhm.
have five people living in a house and not everybody acts the same way. Like your husband, does he even have any symptoms really?
No,
Yeah.
he's been fine, and the only reason I was able to make sense of Claire's or mine is because it was her and I having all the symptoms and feeling the way we were. If at most he had a stuffy nose, like, he didn't really have any complaints.
So we bought our home from my in-laws. This is where and I'll be brave and say this because I believe it. My mother-in-law was a health nut, like more than you and I. Anybody that knows my family knows that. So intense, so researched. Weston A. Price for years. That's how I kind of dove into it. She was so stickler. Like when she passed away, when she was actively dying, she would not take anything for anxiety or pain. Like the 24 hours, she was to the core, like at till the end. She had all her babies at home, and this woman gets ALS, which is a neurological disorder.
Wow.
We bought the home from them. We move in. My father in law was having some anxiety at the end and having a lot of difficulty sleeping, which is actually how the mold manifested at my husband. But when I brought it up to him, he's like, well, I was going through a lot because he lost his wife. And I'm like, I don't know, because you moved out and it got better. Our kids would spend the night with him quite a bit, and they would always have severe allergies. Well, when I found out about the mold and my Lyme, so this was only like 9 months ago, maybe, I was added to a couple Facebook groups, and one of them suggested a group that's called When ALS is Actually Mold or
Wow.
Lyme. And I was like, what? And I'm like telling my husband. And so I started researching it. And I believe with everything inside of me that that's what it was because she does have the MTA mutation. My husband does.
Right.
Pretty sure she had a
Yeah.
double copy. She didn't methylate well. She knew that. And I think her body just couldn't deal with
Yeah.
it. And she knew that there was something more. Like she was trying so much. But back then, which this was 6 years ago, like, mold wasn't really talked about. This is,
Mm-mm.
like, a newer thing people are talking about, and so now I hear stories of kids with, like, pandas, right? And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Mold or parasites?" Like, you gotta go with it's probably both because, they kinda
Yeah,
go hand in hand. Um, I just think it's more of a problem than people realize.
yeah,
I'm
for
sure you do
sure.
too.
Yeah. And, having the on-call job and the stress that has and takes a toll
Mhm.
on your body, and then living in an environment like that, I mean, it's kind of just setting you up.
Well, and then we can't control the environments we go in. So
That too.
that's the thing is that we cannot, I believe anyways, where I land on it is like we can't get rid of mold. Like it's everywhere. It's
It
outside.
is.
There's
Mhm.
it's everywhere. Our bodies have to become better at dealing with it essentially, kind of like stress. Like you can't get rid of stress, but you have to learn how to cope with it so that it impacts your body less. But in order to heal, you have to have a season out of the thing that made you so sick and you're so sensitive to. So like building a new house, like yes, now you and I talk so much about like there's so much you can do to reduce, major mold happening. But like some amount it's gonna happen, you have to
Right.
manage it. And it's like terrifying for us to think about, but like it's gonna happen. We should be able to manage it. But while you're healing, you have to have a season where you're not in it. And so like being in birth work, we're in houses for hours on end sometimes
Mhm.
and there's an active mold problem. And you and I can both tell, like I can tell the first thing that happens is my like jaw and ears start burning. Like I feel a buzz. And it's almost like the beginnings of a brain fog. And
Mhm.
I know and I'm like, "Oh shoot." And it usually happens within like 2 to 3 hours of me being in it. Um if I'm only in for me, and everybody's different, if I'm only in it for like 6 hours, then typically when I leave, if I take NAC and I hydrate and I sauna, it's gone pretty quick. But you had an experience recently where I mean, are you even recovered from it
I
at this
am,
point?
I am, I am.
But you were in like 2 very moldy situations back to back, very long
Yeah,
births, and it
yeah,
was like they were like, "It's in your clothes,"
yeah,
which I
yeah,
was
and,
like, "Oh
yes,
my gosh,
because
it's in our clothes." Like,
yes, yes. And the only reason why I even considered that is because Claire started having her night terrors again. And,
right.
once we left the house and we got rid of all of our things and we moved to our new place, literally everything we got rid of, if we could wash it, we would wash it 3 times, with special stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, she hasn't had a night terror since we left, and it's been
Yeah.
7, 8 months. And then she had it again, and it's like, why? What is that coming
Why?
from? And then I
Right.
wasn't getting better, and so that's how we were able to pinpoint what it was. But yeah, it
Yeah.
can
And
travel
that's
with
the
you.
thing. Yeah. Well, and that's the mold cycle. I remember, I think it was Mold Finders maybe that I saw the mold cycle where it's basically like, okay, you suspect there's mold, and then you're like, no, it's not mold, and then you like find the mold, and then you're like, no, but it's not actually making me sick, and then you say, yes, it's making me sick, but other people tell you you're crazy, and so you're like, no, I'm crazy. It's like this whole thing of like, I'm nuts, like I'm totally nuts.
Yeah.
It's not until you actually take the steps to get rid of it and not instantly, but you kind of instantly notice something different. I mean, for us, it was like I said, within 2 weeks. I tell everybody it was within 2 weeks we saw a big difference. It just the difference didn't last for me and it was different, but that's because it triggered my I've been exposed to mold a couple times, like frequently the last few months. And it impacts me. It impacts me pretty greatly. I usually have a candida issue within 24 hours of the exposure. My doctor's has verified that with me, and so he has me on a protocol. And when I say my doctor, like I'm super holistic, he's very holistic. But when it does come to something like Lyme, I like the fact that he's got the doctor hat, even though he knows I'm not
Mhm.
going to do antibiotics and he super respects that. But he can look at it through the MD lens for me and then say, okay, well, here's the natural side of it for you. It's like totally my cup of tea because when you're dealing with this level, like we do have to be able to run labs and see like how's this actually impacting your body? So we
Right.
know if treatment's working. And I mean, you guys have had the same experience with you and Claire. So yeah, but the exposure itself, I mean, it's kind of put me backwards. And so at some point you have to decide like this is too much for me. It's too much for our families because we can go and we can be all on at the birth, but then when we leave, we come home and we want to live life at home. We don't want our family to get our seconds, or really it's like our thirds, because we're spending all our time recovering, our finances recovering, you know, it's just a lot. And I think, the number one thing they say for Lyme anyways, I don't know about mold, but they're like, okay, like you're going to kind of have it for the rest of your life. Some people disagree with that, but let's say I have for the rest of my life. They say, "Oh, well the way you manage it is through lifestyle and diet. So you need to reduce your stress, you need to get regular sleep and eat clean basically." And I'm like, great. So I'm a midwife, life and death. Like that's stressful. And then I'm up all night and like never
Uh-huh.
know when I have to go to a birth and be there for 24 hours. So it's hard. Like there's a grieving process to it. And I mean, I'm not giving this up forever, I don't think. But it's hard to think about because we've built our businesses to such a degree. And
Yeah.
and so it is hard to make the sacrifice to say like I'm gonna step away because that's what I have to do to be healthy and what our families need us to do.
Yeah. And I think mine is similar, although I don't know. I was so bad at the beginning of this year that I don't know if I was entering multi houses or not. It was just the fact that I had to go somewhere. My nervous system was, all over the place of being on call. And, it didn't even matter if I
Mhm.
was there 2 hours. I would get home and I'd be in full body pain. I wouldn't be able to move. It'd be hard for me to get out of bed. I'd be taking ibuprofen, Tylenol, ibuprofen. Like I couldn't function. And it was
Mm.
just the fact of going to a birth. And so I couldn't get on top of trying to heal because I was on call all the time and having to put my health and my stuff to the side, which it's hard to talk about because I don't want any of my clients to think that,
Right.
we don't love our job. We love our job, but it's also hard to have to
Mhm.
manage, physical health symptoms and emotional health symptoms if we're struggling with other, chronic issues.
Mhm. Well, and that's the thing is like a laboring person is like very maternal and empathetic. Like that's
Yeah.
where they're sitting because of where they're at. They're pregnant, they're growing a human, they're very empathetic. So if they know something's going on with us, they're worried about us. And both you and I, like I mentioned at the beginning, like what makes you so great is that you're self-aware with that. Like I hope I'm self-aware with that, that we're never bringing our junk in to their
Yeah.
birth. And so we don't let them know, nor do I mean, I don't want them to know. My clients had no idea the level in which I was struggling. Um wasn't able to open up and start sharing with them and I was starting to feel better. Because again, like I saw a solution and I saw a light at the end of the tunnel of like, oh, I can get better and like this is going to be better. And that's why it's taken me so long to be I mean, this is the most open I've been. I think I have two clients. One of them that was kind of a catalyst for like when I took off, when I decided to take off. They know a little bit because I wanted to share with them, like they're part of my story.
Right.
But they don't even know that all this, you
Yeah.
know. It's hard because I don't ever want them to look back and I don't want them to feel bad or I don't want them to
Right.
feel like anything, and also for me, like my clients, I hope and I don't think ever suffered because I wasn't feeling well. My family did.
Right.
Because I didn't ever want them to. That's not fair. They didn't sign up for that. And so I would run myself into the ground. And my husband knew it. Um, and my family's the one who suffered. They're the ones who didn't get their mom. And it just comes to a point where that's not fair anymore, and then to the other side of it of like being on social media, I think there's a side of it that's like, oh, well, so you weren't honest the last 3 years of how crappy you felt. So I'm just going to take a moment and address that. That does go back to my clients. It has nothing to
Yeah.
do with me not wanting to be honest. I jokingly said years ago as a doula, you'll notice my kids have not been sick in 6 years. You know, um, you might see injuries because that's taken care of, but sick, no, because I don't want you to worry about I'm not going to be able to come to your birth because my kid has a stomach flu and I don't want to pass it to you because odds are it's going to pass, it's going to be fine, and I'm going to be at your birth and there's not going to be a contagion issue. But I don't want them in their head about that. I don't want them
Right.
worried that something's going on. I mean, my dad passed away back in March. My clients didn't know. I didn't share about it for months because I didn't want them to worry. So there's that. It's,
Yeah. Yeah.
we just don't want
We don't
to
want
worry.
them to feel burdened with our problems. And so,
Yeah,
yeah.
because that's,
I
yeah,
yeah.
it's not what they signed up for. Yeah, I agree. Well, I'm sure we could do, and we should do like a whole other live on all the things we've done to heal. But what if we take, because I don't want to go over an hour because people will watch. We're at like 45 minutes, which is good. You want to take a few minutes? We could each talk about like some of the things we've learned and like what's helped us the most, maybe. I don't
Well, I
know, or
mean,
anything
what's
else.
what I've learned is I need to take care of myself. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the thing that has helped me the most lately is a parasite protocol. Is a parasite protocol
same.
definitely helped me. I think I had just gotten so down in a hole to a point that we were talking because I work with the holistic dietitian, and we're talking about mast cell activation syndrome. Maybe I'm like I got to a point I was facial flushing all the time. We thought we were reacting to cortisol. Maybe I'm reacting to cortisol. Like it was that much. Doing the parasite protocol for, I mean, I think I was on it for 5 months. I feel like it completely changed my life because I'm actually able to get outside, go for walks. I couldn't even walk. I couldn't even walk
Mm.
for very long. So, um, that so far has been number one, and we'll see what happens
Mm.
after this because there's going to be more
Yep.
healing happening.
Yep. There's more. And I mean, we're in this like toxic world. And so at some
Right.
point, we've spent, for me, I just turned 38. I've spent 38 years like not dealing with what's really going on from probably like an emotional standpoint and a physical standpoint. While I've been holistic, I had never done a parasite protocol ever
Yeah, it was
until,
my first one. So,
yeah, it's been 6 months ago. So when I found out I had Lyme, I immediately went to my crew of holistic people and was like, where do I need to go? What do I need to do? And everyone recommended the same LLMD, which is like a Lyme specialist doctor, because he's holistic and he uses something called LDI, which is like homeopathics. And so I got an appointment with him, but I couldn't get in for 2 months. And so I was like, well, here we go. I guess I'm getting back on my herb train that I, was into before midwifery school and had taken a back seat. And so I started a parasite herbal protocol. And I'm really grateful because I think it like eased me in for a couple months because it was just all I knew to do. And I did start to feel a little bit better doing that. I really did. Like I was like functional, which was nice. And so when he started me on everything in January, I really only had like 5 days of reaction symptoms during that. But same, I did a parasite protocol, and I'm actually going to do the one you were doing in about a month. My husband and I are going to do that again, which is cell core. We can say what that is. And what I did prior was there's different ones. So you definitely want to work with a practitioner, but I did the Does Bio homeopathics after I'd done the herbs. And it's actually a protocol my doctor gave me. So you start with herbs, but luckily I'd already been doing those. And so then you do the homeopathics. And that's what made me have the reaction because I'd been doing so much work that I didn't follow the instructions. And I was just like, I'm going to do all of it like right now. And once you start it, you can't go backwards.
oh
And I thought
no.
my head was going to explode. Oh my, it was so bad. It was during the ice. And I was like, I'm going to die. What have I done? But then I felt great after all the symptoms passed. And then you move on to some medications. It's about 2 weeks of medications. One is the one I mentioned earlier that's popular that people know about. But honestly, I didn't notice anything with the medications. I really think that between the herbs and then I did do the cell core binder, that's kind of what did it for me. But I will say I backed off of all of that because I've been feeling so good. And I hadn't really been doing a whole lot of parasite maintenance. And the last full moon, I noticed, like, I didn't dawn on me until like the following day, but like the 2, 3 days leading up to it, I was not feeling good. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I got to get back to doing this. And so this last month, I didn't do a protocol, but I just did some management, and we just had a full moon about a week ago and it was much better. Still not great. So it did make me realize, like, between that and the mold exposure and me just not feeling good the last like month and a half, like, I think I got a little too excited by how good I felt
Mhm.
and was doing too much and not enough, like, at the same time. But at the same time, there's been so much freedom because the not enough and the too much has nothing to do with, like, I'm not eating what I'm supposed to, or I'm not taking the supplement that I'm supposed to. It's like, no, there's like an actual real reason that I'm not
Mhm.
feeling good. It's because these little boogers are multiplying, or whatever. And
Yeah,
before people freak out and say, ew, gross, like, you all have parasites. So calm down. It's
everybody does.
fine. Everybody but the interesting thing, farmers, or should I say, people used to be more farmers, more so farmers. Everybody did some degree of farm time. And so deworming was very normal. I even spoke to somebody recently that culturally, she's like, oh, yeah, we do it once a month. We take papaya seeds. Like, that's just part of what we do. So I heard something that basically, whenever we moved from the country to the city, people just stopped deworming, and it just has not been culturally the norm. If you talk to old farmers, they still do stuff. I mean, most of them
Mhm.
just take the horse paste. They're like, yeah, we do that. You know, um, we really should be deworming. So I even do things with my kids now. The 2-year-old, that one tricks me. There's not much information out there. And so I just choose to do what I feel comfortable with. And I can't wait till she's a little older because I think she probably needs it the most,
Mhm.
honestly. Um, but the older ones we do things with. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
haven't gotten to that stage with Claire yet because she does still have eczema, and so if her body is
Hmm.
not ready for it, then we're
Right.
looking for a huge
And
flare, so
right, and there's that, and that's, I think, my youngest why, because I feel like she's more sensitive, and that's the part, like, you have to ideally, working with somebody is what you want because everybody can handle something different. One of the midwives I know, her husband has Lyme and mold, and he has been dealing with this for years. She's one of the ones that gave me the referrals, and he cannot do what I've done. He cannot make it that far. His body cannot do it. It will not respond well. So everyone's different in what they can manage and how quickly their body, can
yeah,
take the treatment,
yeah,
you know.
100%.
Sweating. I remember you talking to me about sweating.
Yeah, I quit
Um,
sweating.
yeah,
With whatever happened end of last year, I quit sweating, but, all this work
yeah,
that I've been doing, I was finally able to sweat again, and it's
sweat.
so disgusting, but it's
Which means
amazing.
no, it's great because that means like your detox pathways are
Yeah,
open, and so now your body's ready for the parasite cleanse. That's the thing, is like you can't really just hear this and go, okay, what do I order? Like, I'm going all in. Like, everyone's different. I do think if you can find, I mean, finding out the root cause is the most
yeah,
important. I spent years treating symptoms, even though it was from a holistic standpoint. I was still treating symptoms. I was still treating that. Okay, why am I not sleeping well now? Why am I gaining the weight? Or why is my thyroid not
mhm,
regulated? Or, treating the symptoms, taking the vitamin. And so instead of going, okay, wait, but why are all these things happening?
yeah,
And that's where I think both of us have done forms of energetic testing,
mhm,
whether it's muscle testing, bioenergetic testing, and then you can back that up with the lab testing to really
right.
find out, like, what's the cause. So that's what I want to preach. I want to preach, like, look for mold and get some bioenergetic testing. That's what I think. I want to buy I want to buy the machine, but it's like 20 grand. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, for
if anybody
sure.
wants to sponsor that, they can hit me up. My time off. All right. Well, Lawren, thank you. If for nothing else, this is therapeutic for me to do this with you. So thank you. I appreciate your time. It's funny because it showed like a few people at a time watching. I know there's more people watching than that, so I'll let you know. And anybody who's watching this after, again, please leave us messages if you want to know like how to dive in, because I definitely have some resources I can very easily send people, to start exploring. And I'll just warn you, we can both warn you, it can be really overwhelming. Um, Kind of depressing. It can make you feel really stuck at times. But you don't have to be. So, like, hopefully, both of us talking about it and where we are today can encourage people that, you know, they're not going to be stuck there. So that's why we're quitting birth for now. And Lawren is not quitting photography. So we should have
Yes,
mentioned
I'm
that.
still doing photography, but it's for myself. It's
Okay.
mentorships for myself, things that I'm
Yeah.
doing for fun, and I still do have, of course, births coming up in October and February. But yeah, I mean, I'm no longer accepting anymore. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to accept any more repeats.
Hmm.
I actually decided to take repeats, and then I had 3 repeats wanna hire me at the same time in February, and I was like, "I can't do that either."
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know when or if I will come back to birth, but I will, yeah, I'm still doing photography.
Yeah, so she's doing lifestyle session. You are doing officially,
Not
right?
it's not
Lifestyle session.
lifestyle, shame on you.
What are you calling it? I'm so sorry.
It's documentary.
Documentary. Sorry, documentary. I knew that. I'm sorry. It's not.
Lifestyle is
I knew that.
posed to look
You're
natural.
right. Lifestyle's totally different. I don't know why I said that. I do know better than that. I know better than
It's
that.
documentary, completely
Yeah,
unposed.
documentary.
I'm just hanging out with the family, yeah.
It's amazing. So she did it for us. If you're on my Instagram, you can see some. I need to like redo my website a little bit and post a bunch so that that'll be on my to do. Um, they mean the world to me. They're beautiful. I think anybody should take a snapshot of their life, like that. So it's so well worth it. So she's still doing that. And I am actually doing Patreon. So for $3 a month, people can sign up and get a hold of all my content, whether it's homestead content or birth related content. And with that, I'm doing a live once a month. And then I'm also offering a $60 membership where you actually get a phone consult with me. I did that because that's a pretty good steal of a deal of what I usually charge for consults. And so I thought, well, that allows people to still have access to me for like fertility consults and nutrition consults and things like that, but just to route it through the Patreon. And so I have a great list of referrals for midwives for anybody who gets pregnant in the next few months. And I am still doing some work with my good friend and midwife, Bethany Stricker. So I'll be, still need to make a little bit of money. So I'll be working with her. But yeah, I'm taking a break and I don't know when I'm coming back either. I hope to be an old lady midwife, is what I've always said. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how long it'll be. I definitely will still be doing some births, but on my terms, a little bit more.
Right.
So, anyways, well, look at us right at an hour. I'm proud. So, all right. Well, thank you, Lawren. I appreciate you and your
Of
time.
course.
And
Thank you.
we will be chatting soon, probably
Yes.
right after this. So,
Yes, probably.
okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.